Good afternoon. You are in time for the Lunchtime News. A very warm welcome to the broadcast. My name is Irene Muchuma Odem. On sign language interpretation this afternoon, we have Brian Muraru. On this day, it is the cabinet retreat kickoff in the county of Nakuru. This as we'll be talking medical tourism matters in our business segment. But for now, let's interact on all our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1. We kick off from the county of Kiambu. At least 100 people are expected to be charged in court after police in the region arrested them for being involved in the selling and transporting of illicit brew. Kiambu County Police Commander Michael Mushiri says over 2,000 liters of chang'aa and muratina were also confiscated in the Monday crackdown. According to Mushiri, police have obtained crucial information about illegal distillers and brewers in homestays in areas of Kiamumbi, Riabai and Ting'ang'a.
Ni intelligence led. Manake community na wananchi kunung'uniziana habari, kupeana taarifa. Kuna watu ambao wanatumia unapata kwamba wanatumia chupa za zile kampuni ambazo ni nzuri kujaribu kutengeneza sumu yao, maneno yao. Yale ambayo tumeweza kukamata hii weekend ambayo imepita, Saturday na pia jana Jumapili, zimepelekwa kwa mahabara ziangaliwe.
Health workers unions have given the Kisii County government executive 2 weeks to address their grievances or risk withdrawal of services with effect from March 4th, 2024. The unions are accusing the county government of violating the rights of health workers by allegedly denying sick doctors their salaries and constant intimidation. The unions are now demanding immediate payment of the health workers' dues, procedural promotions, and hiring more health workers to address the workforce shortage.
They have refused to allow members to go back to school as it is provided under our policies. This country has not employed healthcare workers 7 years down. And you continue purporting to offer quality services. What category of this county, I don't know how to call this county.
We have a situation where doctors who are doing their work and get sick are the salaries are being stopped arbitrarily, yet they're sick. We have consultants that are working in very poor conditions. We have tried to have engagements with the county for the last 15 months with no results. And today we are issuing a 14-day strike notice. Amen. To Kisii County. Solidarity forever.
Residents of Forte Town in Makueni constituency have decried the deteriorating security situation following the killing of a security guard at Malivani AIC Primary School by unknown assailants on Monday night. According to the school head teacher, the attackers unsuccessfully attempted to break into his office.
Kwa kuvunja milango ni kama walitumia chuma ambazo walikuwa wamebeba. Kwa kuweza kutoa uhai wa askari wetu ni walimukata na sharp objects. Hatuwezi kujua ni panga ama ni shoka mara mbili kwa kichwa. Na akaanguka in front of the office. Akafa. We conducted the OCPD, Madam Ciele, who sent the crime officers, who sent the police officers. They did their job, and they took the body of the deceased away to the mortuary.
Residents of Konyek village in Samburu East sub-county now have a reason to smile following the launch of a borehole water project that has significantly reduced the distance they need to travel to access water. Initiated by Samburu Project Organization, the project has reduced the distance to water source by 8 kilometers, marking a transformative milestone for the community.
The unveiling of the Konyek Village Borehole project saw elders celebrate with traditional blessings, symbolizing the significance of this essential resource in transforming the community's livelihoods. According to the Samburu project manager Eric Lekoli, hydrological survey for the project commenced in 2021, and after overcoming challenges, the precious commodity was discovered at a depth of 200 meters in the previous year.
Before we put this project here, the community used to walk about 8 kilometers to get water from Langusaka River, which is hand-dug well. And before the well, the community, the children used to get diseases like diarrhea, which is, this is something that we have not seen since 3 months that we installed this well here.
The residents highlighted the profound impact of the project, noting that it has not only improved hygiene, but also mitigated conflicts over water resources. The water project now serves more than 1,200 households within Konyek and the neighboring villages in remote sublocation.
Sababu samani tunaenda kuleta maji safi, tunakuja kukunywa. Lakini sasa tumepata afya kwa ajili ya maji smart tuliletewa.
Tulikuwa tunaishi jangwa ambaye mama akianda maji asubuhi, mama huyo alikuwa anaamuka saa 12 inaenda hadi saa 8 inafika nyumbani. Mama ikiwa mjamzito inaenda mpaka inakuja jioni kabisa. Watoto wanaumia nyumbani bila maji ya kunywa, na hata jirani usipata maji kwa sababu uwe tunakimbilia mbali. Hata saa hii wanyama yetu tumepata salama na hawa kwa sababu hakuna shida sasa tuko naye. Hata ndovu inakuja na wanakunywa maji pale ile inateremka na tunaenda tu na tunakaa pamoja.
The Samburu Project Organization has further encouraged the locals to have kitchen gardens where they can grow vegetables that will improve nutrition standards at the households level.
The community where we are today, the Konyek community, we've started a kitchen garden. We have different varieties of vegetables, and these women, they have not tested kunde or spinach in their lives. So we will be doing a demonstration in the coming 2 weeks to ensure they know how to prepare this food, to ensure that we have also lifted them in terms of health.
Jacqueline Mashare for Lunchtime News.
All right, let's cross over to Naivasha, the county of Nakuru. The cabinet retreat is underway in the area. The retreat aims at reviewing the Kenya Kwanza scorecard, and we have able team on the ground. John Jacob Curia, good afternoon. Curia, good afternoon. We do understand
good afternoon,
the cabinet
Irene,
retreat is
Muchuma,
underway
live
in
from the
Naivasha.
Resort, the venue of the cabinet retreat being led by President William Ruto. I believe Nairobi probably is recording about 34 degrees of sunshine, and I think it must be at 40 probably in Naivasha. It's a very hot day here in Naivasha, Nakuru County, but nevertheless the meetings continue. You remember in the morning as we were speaking to News Check, we said that the president is still held up with governors. Of course, there are several issues they're going to discuss. I'm going to tell you in a bit. And then next in line was supposed to be the UDA party, which is yet, of course, to access the venue of the meeting just yet, because I think the meeting between the president and the governors, or the executive and the governors, has really lasted for quite some time, or way beyond the anticipated time. But you'll remember a key among the issues that have been conversed by the governors and the president, and you've seen governors really talk about it, is the disbursement of, the county allocation. And a dispute, you would say, of some sort that ran over into the new financial year is the actual amount of money that is supposed to go towards the county allocation. And you remember the governors and the Senate wanted that money to be at 424 billion. But then I understand the executive has stuck with about 391 billion shillings. That is the only money that can be accommodated in this budget to be deployed to counties as what you would say a county revenue allocation would be 391 billion, as opposed to what the governors and senators wanted to be 424 billion. And of course, out of that meeting, probably there will be some white smoke who will hear whether there will be an additional, there will be an increase in terms of the revenue that will be deployed to counties, or it will remain at 391. But I'm sure the meeting, of course, being led by the president, is going to broker a truce. We've seen the Council of Governors and, of course, the different chairs that chair the departmental committees within the COG with the president. The meeting started quite early, and they are still stuck in that meeting up until probably later. But then the ruling party, UDA, is also expected to make a presentation before the members of the executive. And this is the second day of the ongoing conversation as President William Ruto brings together his members of cabinet and the executive, senior members of the executive, including his advisors, of course, to evaluate their performance 1 year, of course, the last 1 year, the performance in the last 1 year, and what the performance will be, of course, in the next 1 year. And this, like I said yesterday, has been a tradition for this administration. You remember there was a similar meeting last year in Nanyuki. This meeting is happening here in Naivasha, and there is a possibility that there could be more meetings annually, bringing together the cabinet, senior members of the executive to evaluate government performance, being measured, of course, against what they promised Kenyans or during the pre-election stage. Why UDA is important, or why they will be making submissions before the executive our senior members of executive is because you remember the nexus between the promises made by President William Ruto and the electorate, obviously, is through the party that is UDA, and it has a manifesto. The president really quite spoke large about the manifesto of the UDA party, saying once fully implemented, it means good tidings for the country, it means economic fortunes will go up, and it means then the country will be back on the path of prosperity. And the president really talking about some less painful, politically correct decisions that were made by previous administrations that led Kenya to where it is today, where you're experiencing a semblance of economic meltdown. And the president says the UDA manifesto, one fully really will be, will bring up the economic prospects of the country. And that is why the UDA party is here, senior membership of the UDA party is here to make submissions before the senior members of the executive. In any case, it serves as a constant reminder of that covenant between the president and the people who voted for him. Of course, the covenant between the president and Kenyans through the promises that he made to them, and it was through the UDA manifesto. That is why the party will also be making its submissions before the senior members of the executive. Of course, once we have a proper brief on what the governors and the senior members of the executive have agreed, we'll be briefing you in due course. But for now, let me hand you back to Irene Muchuma at Broadcasting House to continue with the lunchtime bulletin. Irene.
Thank you, Kuria. John Jacob Kube giving us an update from the county of Nakuru. This as the cabinet retreat is underway, and President William Ruto is this afternoon expected to have a meeting with the cabinet secretaries in the region. Now, we cross over to the county of Mombasa. Earlier on, we had a press briefing by the Supreme Council in the region, but I'm being informed by my director we'll be having that news bit later on in this bulletin. Back to the capital, traders in Nairobi's Babadogo area have taken to the streets, demonstrating against companies that have extended boundaries and encroached into the roads. The traders say the illegal extensions have pushed them further into traffic, endangering their lives. They claim that so far 2 lives have been lost as a result of road accidents.
Serikali tusaidie. Huyu mwindi amechukua hii fence, akafunga barabara, hakuna mahali pa kupita, hakuna penye watoto wanaweza pita wakienda shule, hakuna penye wamama wanaweza fanya biashara na vijana. Gari imeua mama hapa. Nafasi hatuna. Hakuna nafasi. Wamejenga hadi kwa barabara. Hapa tunataka barabara.
We are now standing here as a community, claiming for what belongs to us, claiming for the people who are doing business here so that they get their space.
Tujengewe hizi manyumba zenye zinawekwa za kufanyia biashara ndogo ndogo, at least hata bidhaa zetu tunapoziweka ziko na pahali tunaweza wekeza, hakuna vumbi.
Get down to the coastal part of the country in the Mombasa courts, where we do have a court session that is involving Atsa Kenya and grain bulk handlers. Let's cross over and listen in.
And you also confirmed that even prior to this auction, the fourth defendant had been milling wheat, correct?
That's true.
And now, in the operations department, now that you are head of operations,
yes,
you confirm that this wheat can be sourced both locally and from Ukraine, wherever.
Externally.
Externally.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
So when you look at, you've been shown the cargo manifest. And in this cargo manifest, in the cargo manifest, it is not just Ata Kenya that brought wheat through Kiran. The other importers.
Yes, according to this manifest.
So wheat from
Ann Buru, my colleague down at the coastal part of the country, is on that beat. We do apologize for the technical hitch. Be sure to catch up the details in our subsequent bulletins on that court matter. In other news this afternoon, Garissa Township Legislator Deko Mohammed has asked road contractors in the area to ensure they deliver value for money. Speaking in Garissa Ndogo area when he launched the tarmacking of 11 roads within Garissa Township constituency, Mohammed called on the Kenya Urban Roads Authority and the contractors to give first priority to the locals when giving out the construction jobs. The Deputy Director, Kenya Urban Roads Authority Northeastern Region, Engineer Michael Mugo, said they will monitor the construction works to ensure quality is not compromised, urging the contractors to also ensure they finish the projects in time.
Contractors, tuko na kura hapa, engineers hapa. Kazi lazima ifanywe to the standard that is designed for. Hatutaki short jobs. Nimesikia umesema 9 months. Hii 9 months, 400 meters, 9 months ni mingi kwetu.
Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital has begun conducting reconstruction surgery for a section of breast cancer survivors. The hospital's board chairperson, Professor Olive Mugenda, says at least 10 women will undergo the procedure starting this week, calling on the government and medical insurance companies to consider financing the initiative.
Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital hosted an international symposium for medical experts where the hospital's board chairperson, Professor Olive Mugenda, stressed the importance of financing reconstructive breast surgery.
We are focusing on breast reconstruction, and the reason why we are doing that is that we can give these women a new lease of life.
The hospital emphasizes that breast reconstruction is not merely cosmetic, but a crucial component of the recovery process, aiding survivors in reclaiming their confidence and quality of life.
A lot of them don't know what to do after the surgery, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the resources, and therefore as a hospital, as one of the best cancer centers in the country, we are now thinking of how can we also help these women.
The initiative has garnered international attention, with medical experts from Canada, the US, Argentina, Italy and Ghana collaborating with local doctors to perform the life-changing surgical procedure.
The power of the government to still pushing investing in education, but with education is the best way to change the life of
The Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, has launched a book of scientist stories to encourage young learners to become scientists for future innovation and solving health problems. The book, titled 12 Remarkable African Life Scientists, written by Dr. Tabitha Mwangi, contains stories about the journey of success and African scientists that will motivate students to pursue careers in science. Speaking during the book launching ceremony at St. Thomas Girls KEMRI Research Program Acting Executive Director Edwin Baraza said there is a need to bring up African scientists who can contribute to global impact by finding solutions to emerging health problems in Africa and beyond.
Is to engage with schools to get to encourage students to take up research careers. And what this book does is to show students that it is indeed possible for a young African across the African continent to dream, to dare to dream, not just to be a scientist, but to be a scientist that can make an impact at a global stage.
Kwa akili zangu nilikuwa nawafikiria watoto wa shule ili watiwe moyo, kwa sababu ukiangalia vitabu, ukienda bookshop angalia vitabu zile zimo. Kuna vitabu za Afrika ndio, lakini nyingi ni za business, politics. Hautaona vitabu ambazo zinahusu wanasayansi wa Afrika. Kwa hivyo ukiuliza mtoto, unajua mwanasayansi wa Afrika, wengi hawajui. Na hawajui ya kuwa tuna watu kama hao na tunaweza kufanya research ya hali ya juu.
Tuko na maktaba ambazo tunaweza hesabu zinafanya kazi ni 3 ambazo ziko Malindi, Kilifi na Zisoni, na pia tunatarajia kufungua maktaba mengine 2 ambao iko Gandini na Shariani. Kwa hivyo wanafunzi nilipoangalia wanatoka sehemu hizo wana nafasi na wako na fursa ya kupata ile elimu ya kisayansi, kupata ile ujuzi, kupata ile knowledge ya kisayansi kupitia maktaba hizo.
A non-governmental organization has introduced a community-based health insurance scheme in Migori County that seeks to improve access to medical services. According to the director of Ripple Effect Kenya, Titus Sagala, the health insurance scheme covers groups so far 100 members from Suna East and West Kanyamkago in Uriri have enlisted after paying 2,000 shillings each. The NGO has further signed a memorandum of understanding with the community to facilitate rollout of the insurance scheme.
We have trained them on issues around nutrition. We have also trained them on enterprise development, such that they are using their farms as commercially. They are getting some money. They contribute a little money to this scheme, 2,000 shillings per year, but contributed by selling their vegetables or whatever they sell from the farm. So they put this money together in a scheme.
Glad you're watching the Lunchtime News. We are taking our first commercial break. We'll be back with more news. Remember, in our interactive segment this afternoon, we'll be discussing matters medical tourism. Stay with us.
The king in the land of
This February, precious moments with Channel One entail endless hours of warm sentiments.
I really love you.
Oh, Lord.
Joy.
Did you get the job, Letty?
Romance.
Oh, babe.
Affection. Passion. Family.
Who are those flowers for? Oh, I'm sure they're for Lucia.
fulfillment.
So I want to,
this is so
that's
sweet.
just the start.
An array of programs specially selected for you to give you and your loved ones the cozy feeling of being at home.
Impressive. Baby, let me tell you.
The treat is on us.
Are you serious?
Just give us a chance. Make a date with KBC Channel 1 in the month of love for a heartwarming experience.
You will love it.
Started off a secret, one man as a leader, defied all odds.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yeye ndio mwenye kuturuzuku. Riziki zetu sisi binadamu zinatoka kwake yeye Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeye Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ndio mwenye kuwaruzuku wanyama wakubwa ambao sisi kama binadamu hatuwezi kuwalisha. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala anawalisha.
Kuwalisha mayatima wa karibu ama kumlisha maskini ambaye amelemewa na njaa kunampelekea mja kuwa miongoni mwa waja ambao wataingia katika pepo ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ndiwe pweke ayuni, wewe ni ngao yangu, kinga ya maisha ni.
Glad you're watching the Lunchtime News. Welcome back. Now, hundreds of irate residents from Lioki Village, Ikunu Ward in Kiambu County staged a demonstration over a dilapidated road which they say has been in pathetic condition for decades. The residents' protest comes after what they term as empty promises by leaders, maintaining that they are losing so many opportunities due to the impassable road.
Na tuko na shida kubwa sana kwa sababu tumeshida tukilia kwa hii barabara. Hii barabara imetuletea shida kama sisi wazazi. Juu saa zile watoto wetu wanaenda shule. Inabidi tuwalete mpaka hapa. Juu sisi tunakaa na huku juu. Gari haiwezi panda.
Hizi vimbaya sana. Hata kwa saa hii naumia mwili juu nimeanguka na ninaambiwa nimembeba mapacha. Sasa na sisi nitaenda kujifungua anje. Mara ya kwanza tunaandamana mara mingi. No, mkiandamana unapata maofisa wanamfungia pale juu ya nyinyi mnalilia haki yenu.
We want to give them a notice today that we will be doing this every Tuesday. Yes. And today it was just a starting point. We are very peaceful. Let them not test our peace.
Thank you for staying with us. Time for business news. How much do you understand in medical tourism? But before we get into that interactive segment, let's look at other news. This afternoon in the world of business, Kenyan macadamia farmers are set to improve their agricultural practices and gain access to international certifications. This follows an $8.5 million investment by French asset management company Mirova to Pomoja Company, which deals in the sustainable production of macadamia nuts in Kenya and Tanzania.
Mirova, a subsidiary of Natixis Investment Managers dedicated to sustainable agricultural investment, has injected $8.5 million meant to accelerate macadamia projects in Kenya and Tanzania. The Nairobi-based processing plant and access to extensive distribution networks will help generate substantial additional income for macadamia producers, giving them access to international markets. The investment is also set to help the government in implementing the bottom-up economic transformation agenda better goals by supporting small-scale producers to establish a sustainable value chain. Meanwhile, the Nairobi Securities Exchange NSE has announced Frank Mwiti as its new Chief Executive Officer, succeeding Geoffrey Odundo. In the notice to shareholders, the Nairobi Board says Mwiti will take office effective 2nd May 2024 following regulatory approvals. The NSE board has been unequivocal in its endorsement of Mwiti, envisaging him as the architect of the exchange's future. The notice read, and I quote, "We are confident in Frank Mwiti's strategic capabilities to accelerate the growth of the NSE and support the government's capital markets agenda," end of quote. Frederick Muki for Lunchtime News.
Car and General Trading Kenya plans to scale up the assembly of electric version of its three-wheeler vehicles in Kenya. The firm's chief executive officer, David Chisoni, says the company currently assembles at least 15 units daily at its Mombasa and Thika branches.
The push towards electric mobility is gaining traction in Kenya, backed by the decision by the government to develop e-mobility policy. The document is expected to guide Kenya in the transition to electric-powered vehicles from fossil-powered vehicles as Kenya targets to cut greenhouse emissions by 32% within the next 6 years.
Congratulations! We finally have our EV vehicles three-wheeler here.
Car and General Trading Kenya is the latest firm to introduce electric three-wheelers.
To speak today, this product came in CKD form and it has been assembled in Mombasa at ABM Mombasa and KBM in Thika. So from that perspective, I think we're in line with the government's policy or desire to create opportunities for young people. And as a company in the past, we have trained young people.
Chesoni says the electric three-wheelers are cost-effective in terms of fuel and maintenance costs.
When you look at a normal vehicle, it will cost you even maybe 3 shillings, depending on the type of fuel that you're using, 3 shillings to 4 shillings per meter. But when you are using a vehicle like the electric vehicle that we are talking about, your cost comes down to close to maybe 1 shilling and 80 cents per kilometer. So you are looking at a very huge saving.
The firm plans to work with local battery swapping stations.
We'll move forward and give our customers an option of having fixed battery and doing swappable. So right now we've introduced fixed battery. Maybe in a couple of months, we'll be able to offer our customers a swappable option. So you'll have the choice of deciding whether you want to be charging in your house or maybe walking to a swapping station and changing your battery. So that option is going to be there in a couple of months.
The target is to double assembly to at least 300 units daily.
All right, time for us to get into our interactive segment. This afternoon, we're discussing matters medical tourism. On set with us is the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council CEO, Dr. David Kariuki. Welcome on set.
Thank you.
And just for a kickoff, let's understand what is medical tourism.
Just a little bit correction. My name is Dr. Nderito Wangui, the Medical Director for Nairobi Outpatient Gulf Limited. And medical tourism previously has been viewed as exchange of knowledge of patients from areas of low socioeconomic areas to areas where they have modern technology and modern inventions of medicine. But we have seen now that the trend has changed. We have it even from high economic zones to low economic zones in terms of medical cost. There are people who feel that the cost of medications and healthcare in their areas is high and they move to low socioeconomic to get the care.
All right, Mr. Nderito, probably because there was a guest that was supposed to come together with you, so that is why I'm sorry about that. And there are a lot of challenges that we have when it comes to medical tourism in the country. For us to be able to compete with these countries like India and also China, what is your take in regards to this?
My take is Kenya is not that we are deficient of knowledge, of skill, of the inventions that make people move to other countries to seek these services. What we lack is infrastructure. and implementation of the government policies we have on infrastructural zones, such that even internally we see patients living all the way from Garissa to come and seek healthcare in Kenyatta, in Nairobi. So once we're able to sort these infrastructural challenges, we can be able to become a health leader in East and Central Africa for medical tourism.
But then besides that, we also have patients or sick clients who face challenges when it comes to traveling abroad for these medical services. What do we really need to have at hand when we intend to do these travels?
Yes, when we intend to do these travels for medical tourism, we have facilities that do something called travel medicine. Nairobi Outpatient Gulf is one of the leaders for travel medicine in Gulf, in the Gulf Health Council. We are accredited by the Gulf Health Council for catering for the travelers for their area. Now, what is required is you need first to apply in the relevant embassies. They will send you to specific facilities to do certain tests and actually accredit that you have that disease that you are traveling to get treated for. After that, there are some vaccination processes that you need to go through. Remember, we come in a yellow fever endemic zone, so you need to get those vaccinations. And after the visa process is done through the medical facilities and the embassies, you are free to travel.
The government has been trying to put in efforts to ensure that all these steps run accordingly. But from where you sit, where would you place Kenya when it comes to medical tourism?
Kenya is a medical tourism destination, is a leader in East and Central Africa. That cannot be challenged. But there's a lot that we need to do because we are seeing even internally, leave alone even medical tourism externally, there's a lot that needs to be done so that we can actually attract these clients. How do we attract them? Look at our borders. We have Uganda on this side, we have our neighbors on this side, Somalia, Tanzania. Before we start attracting people outside Africa, we need to go the South African way. Let's first attract our peers. And it's by the quality of service, the time for the care to be given, and the cost. That is what will put us on the lead. An example is, let's say heart transplant, it's $300,000 in US. It's 91,000 in Taiwan. Maybe in Kenya it's 50,000. So those costs are what determines on if people will be attracted to the medical tourism as a destination in Kenya. Yeah.
Now that Kenya is placed at that position in East and Central Africa, and most likely that could be our target market. But who else could we look beyond East and Central Africa?
We have the whole of African continent at our disposal. If you look at how our neighbors in the South Africa have done, they have taken the whole continent as their clients in terms of medical tourism. So we have the whole continent of Africa at our disposal. It's how much you're going to market it, our cost and our turnaround time on these clients. Yeah.
And what is your take in regards to medical tourism, even as we make this progress? Where do you see Kenya by the end of 2025?
By the end of 2025, every day we are making milestones. If we are to talk about 3 or 4 years ago, we only had 1 or 2 level 6 hospitals in the country. Now we are talking about 5, 6 level 6 hospitals. So by the end of 2025, we envision a place, if we'll have implemented our UHC as we're implementing it, we'll be a leader in terms of both medical tourism and taking care of our clients in the country.
You mentioned about infrastructure as one of the key items that we need to look into. What are these other things that you think we need to put in place, and also policies that you think the government needs to implement for a successful growth?
When you talk about health, the major contributor is human resource. As things stand, is 1 doctor is to 14,000 to 16,000 patients. And as we have just heard in the news, in KC we have issues with healthcare workers. We need to first sort our healthcare human resource issues. I don't say that the evolution of human resource of health was a problem, but there's a way that it can be sorted and fits in our needs as a country. Once we have been able to sort our human resource issues and our healthcare of our population, we will be able to attract others. Otherwise, we're not going to attract other clients outside the country if our own have not been sorted.
And when you talk about us attracting other clients out of the country, there's been an issue, even as we come to the close, there's been an issue on Kenyans losing most of its personnel who have trained in the medical services into other countries. What is your take in regards to that?
Currently, there are bilateral ties that have been signed. We can talk about the nurses who are moving to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia to be specific. There are those who are moving to Germany. Those are bilateral agreements to try and bring foreign revenue to the country. As much as we have the brain drain that is happening, we also have a lot of unemployed human resource for health in the country. We need to have a mechanism of absorbing this human resource for health so that we can utilize it in our country before we export it outside our country.
But do you see a crisis if the trend continues?
We are facing a crisis very soon. If we are to look at the number of healthcare workers leaving the country and how many healthcare workers are leaving actually our counties for private sectors and government facilities for private sectors, and also leaving even to other sectors and leaving the healthcare as a whole, we have a challenge coming up that we need to address urgently.
With all this, there is the issue of cost of living, there is the issue of medical fee that is coming in place. What will be your advice for someone who needs to seek medication outside the country and is in this situation?
One, seeking medication outside the country is expensive, and it's not an off-pocket thing that you're going to get into your pocket and fund alone. We have seen Harambes. What we need to sensitize our citizens is each of us needs a health insurance so that we can be able to meet these costs.
Basically, when we look at the tourism products in the country, we would place medical tourism in one of the centers that is coming up so fast. But then there are also issues that we need to put in place, the policies that I talked about. What do you think the government needs to put in place for us to attain this?
It's a stepwise approach. Starts with what we said, sort the human resource for health. Once we have done with sorting the human resource for health, we'll need to sort the infrastructural issues. I give a case scenario of Vinit Hospital in India that has signed memorandums with Nairobi Outpatient Gulf. This hospital receives patients, puts them in, let's say, accommodation, and gives you a turnaround time that we will be with you for these 30 days, and within 30 days we're done with the care. When we come to our side, when you're walking to a hospital, you don't have a turnaround time. I have gone in, I'll get out this time, whatever kind of care that you are receiving. And remember, in this medical tourism, majority of what we are getting is surgeries, fertility. Those are things that people are traveling to get. We need to first put infrastructure for hosting the patients, infrastructure in hospitals for offering the service within a certain turnaround time so that we reduce this cost. Because the more the patient stays in hospital, the more the cost. The more the patient stays in our country for treatment, the more the cost.
Director, as we come to the close, there have been a lot of concerns in regards to vaccines in the country. There are those also who have complained, basically mixed reactions. What would be your take when we take these vaccines in the country?
I understand the complaints you're talking about, but it's standard, global standard, that when you're leaving the country, there are certain levels and number of vaccines that you have to get. Example of the complaints that you're having is the yellow fever vaccine. We cannot allow you to leave the country without getting a yellow fever vaccine. Why? Kenya has been labeled as an endemic for yellow fever. So anyone leaving Kenya, we have signed with other countries that we shall ensure that they are vaccinated. And these vaccines are not meant to harm you. They are meant to protect you and protect those around you against these diseases.
Thank you. Thank you, Nderitu Wangui. Daktari, for your time. Dr. Nderitu Wangui giving us an insight on medical tourism in the country. He is the director at the Nairobi Outpatient Gulf Limited. Now, in other news this afternoon, Kenya Power hopes installation of smart meters and hybrid systems would help cut commercial losses and save on operational cost. Kenya Power Managing Director Joseph Siror says the firm has installed 67,000 smart meters at business premises by SMEs.
One of the key ones is advanced metering infrastructure, where on this note we have installed a total of 67,000 meters, smart meters, mainly targeting SMEs, and the large power. And the key objective there is reduction of commercial losses, reduction of operation costs. The main aim of Kenya Power, in fact, going forward really, is to have smart meters for all customers. Indeed, as a strategic direction, going forward, we committed to go in the path of smart meters.
Kenya is set to receive a 36 billion shillings concessional loan from India for agriculture mechanization. India's High Commissioner to Kenya, Namgaya Kampe, says part of the facility will be used to advance cheap credit to smallholder farmers to purchase mechanization equipment through public-private partnerships.
Kenya is expected to scale up mechanization with a 36 billion shillings loan facility from India. Part of the facility will be used to advance credit to smallholder farmers to purchase mechanization equipment.
Looking at extending a concessional line of credit to the government of Kenya and its stakeholders, equivalent of $250 million to meet the priorities of agriculture mechanization in the areas that are identified by the government of Kenya.
India's High Commissioner to Kenya, Namgaya Kampe, says there is need for the government to create partnerships with local and foreign farm equipment manufacturers to ensure farmers get the needed equipment at a subsidized price.
And I would only use this platform to invite more companies, Kenyan companies and Indian companies, to find those opportunities, to find those convergences and convert them into specific initiatives.
We want to leverage on that partnership to be able to make Kenya not only food sufficient, agriculture sufficient, but even able to participate in global markets, because this country is capable of doing that.
Local firms are calling for financial institutions to consider tailor-made credit facilities for small-scale farmers to acquire modern farm equipment.
This remains one of the main requirements for all farmers. I think requirement of money is primary to buy any equipment. And with Mahindra, they have brought in solutions which actually are for big farms by bringing that technology into small tractors and providing our farmers, providing providing farming solutions for mechanization, which are value for money.
Mechanization is earmarked to increase farmers' margins by reducing the cost of production and reducing post-harvest losses.
I believe with bringing in mechanization, you will enjoy what is called economies of scale, and we will be able to demonstrate to the farmers that yes, we produce at this price, but because of mechanization, we are able to reduce on what is called the cost of input or the cost of production, and therefore our farmers will be able to get better prices for their produce.
Benson Rioba reporting for Lunchtime News.
Dyke. Thank you for staying with us. Time for Channel 1 Sports. Everton manager Sean Dyche wants a speedier verdict on their appeal against a 10-point deduction after they boosted their Premier League survival hopes with a late draw against Crystal Palace. Dyche spoke out after his side climbed out of the relegation zone with a point secured by Amadou Onana's 84th minute header.
Jordan Ayew goes for goal. Oh! And how? In some style too.
2023 Champions League finalists Inter Milan will begin their knockout campaign against Atletico Madrid tonight with their first leg of their Champions League round of 16 clash at San Siro. In another match, PSV Eindhoven will face German side Borussia Dortmund.
On 8, it was a news.
The Formula One pre-season test in Bahrain kicks off this week and will offer the first glimpse into whether Red Bull's competitors have managed to close the performance gap over the winter. The reigning champions won all but one of the 2023 races in one of the most dominant seasons in the sport's history.
Start. And it does look a bit like a race, doesn't it?
Each of the 10 teams will put their new car through its paces across a 3-day test in Bahrain starting on Wednesday. The test is particularly important for Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes and Aston Martin, who look to set themselves as Red Bull's closest title challenger. Over the past 2 seasons, most teams have been developing their cars to more mimic Red Bull's design, but their 2024 Challenger has some surprisingly new and radical features. In fact, at the team's launch last week, the car appears to have taken much inspiration from the 2023 Mercedes, notably with the side pods and engine cover. This has come as a surprise to many, especially to Mercedes, who ditched the main features that Red Bull has copied for this year. Red Bull are expected to start the season as favourites, with McLaren team principal Andrea Stella doubtful that anyone will put up a season-long challenge to the reigning champions until the next regulation change. The F1 world is yet to see whether Red Bull's aggressive approach to this year's car will pay off, or if they have made some costly mistakes that will bring another team to the forefront. For Lunchtime News, I'm Emmanuel Ndungu.
All right, so on that note, we have come to the end of Channel 1 Lunchtime News. For more details on this and more, do log on to www.kbc.co.ke. My name is Irene Muchuma. On sign language interpretation, we have Brian Miraru on behalf of the entire team behind this broadcast. Thank you for your time. Good afternoon.